What's going on, SFL Nation? Along with Mike St. Green, I'm Cameron Irvine. This is SFL This Week, and we've got the special SFL This Week. We've also got the Matt Wilson pregame kickoff show coming up, and Mike Daggs and Gerald Smith are waiting in the wings to talk about the wild card weekend coming up. But first off, Mike, there's been a lot that's gone on since we last talked to you. You were all over the world, traveling and having an amazing time, and trying to forget about your Houston Cougars' just devastating loss in the championship.
Yeah, well, a couple of days on the high seas pretty much helped with that, and come to find out, a couple of our top guys are coming back, so we're kind of good on that end for right now. But man, I'm happy to be back, but I found myself feeling kind of nostalgic and sentimental this morning, Cam, realizing that this is the culmination of another season of us doing a show of some form of fashion together, pretty much since season 16, man. And I'm glad we were able to cap off another great season together, and looking forward to exciting times in the playoffs.
Yeah, we're here to recap how we got here and look ahead to what's next in what should be an excellent weekend. It has the potential, Mike, to be the best weekend, wild card weekend in SFL playoff history, because all four of these matchups really could go any way. We start today with Albuquerque hosting Sin City, followed by Denver hosting Bossier City. Then on Sunday, Houston welcomes Fort Worth back to town, and then Minnesota goes to Carolina. Just looking at the four games across the weekend, Mike, which game, I know Houston obviously is involved in it, but which game intrigues you, the most?
Well, actually, seeing the line at Denver favored by 4.5 really surprised me over Bossier City. Denver, incredible story this season. After being down for several seasons, coming back and winning a division championship, making it to the playoffs, able to host a home game here against Bossier City. But and I think I understand what the odds makers were doing here in favoring them by 4.5. But Bossier City, a very dangerous team, explosive on offense. If these guys can get things rolling, man, it's going to be interesting to see if that 4.5 spread holds up for Denver.
We're going to get to all the previews throughout the day, and all these matchups are very interesting. But first, we have to start with, kind of how we got here. And the reason we ended up here is because of how the South was won. And it was really anybody's ball game. And, of course, Mike, the way it ended was perfect for how the South has gone this season, because every time you think somebody has the inside track, they don't. And that was really the story in the South. So let's see what went down in the South. We start with probably the most unsettling highlight for you of the weekend, Mike, and that was Dave Axis's opening kick return for a score.
Yeah, Dave Axis with his opening kickoff here. He's been fantastic for a long time in this league, and he pretty much gave Bossier City the leg up with a huge kick return to start this game off.
So Bossier City takes a 7-0 advantage. Houston could have won the division with a win and a Mexico City loss. Bossier City scores again there. That's Vin Calya, made it 17-3. Third and goal here for Houston. Gut check time, and John Lakeman delivers right over the outstretched arms of the defender to Greg Corky, making it 17-10 just before the half. Middle of the third quarter, third and goal from the one, no problem. Robert Nimchek in for the score. Steamers go back up 14. Josh Slapp responds. First play of the fourth quarter, Houston back down by 7 again. And this was kind of the whole game, Mike, because it seemed like every time Houston gave Bossier City an answer, the Steamers were able to respond.
They were definitely able to respond, and Vin Calya, superstar in this league for a long time, had a huge game and a huge touchdown catch right there.
John Lakeman and Greg Corky respond again for Houston, so it's 31-24. This pass to the 6-yard line got Houston in business. You were out of timeouts. You were this close to winning this football game, down 7. Lakeman drops to throw, is picked off one-handed by Gunny McGuire at the goal line, and Bossier City would hold on to get the win, 31-24 over Houston. So the ball was in Mexico City's court. Mexico City could just get a win and they'd be fine because they already had the head-to-head over Albuquerque. Well, it was a hot start for them. Jordan Sipe breaking off a tackle there, finding Bill Henry. I'm thinking Bill Cherry, Sin City. I've been looking at Sin City's roster all day. DJ Moses the second with that touchdown. And finally, Arizona's right back in this thing. 14-7. Now it's 17-7. They're down 10. And it's Everett Garrison with the beautiful interception all the way down to the Mexico City 1-yard line. This gave the Scorpions a huge jolt.
Yeah, this was a big play at this time in the game. Cam Garrison taking it all the way down to the 1-yard line, but Mexico City came up huge with a goal line stand right here.
And this is the type of stuff that's been killing Arizona all season long. But look at DJ Moses willing his Scorpions to a tie ball game in the fourth quarter. Now watch this sequence. 3rd down and goal. Arizona in no huddle. They're down by 3. A field goal would tie. Jackson's pass is incomplete to Itera. And with 8 seconds to go in the fourth, Arizona says, you know what? We're out of the playoffs. We'd rather just screw Mexico City over. 4th and goal at the goal line. Let's go for it. Let's go for the win. One of the clutchest decisions, throws, passes, however you want to call it, this league has ever seen. 24-20, Arizona beats Mexico City. So it was back in Albuquerque's court. All Albuquerque had to do was beat Fort Worth, and they would be in the playoffs. They get going early with a Jack Wall touchdown, but Eric Price and the Toros strike right back at Stephen Hacker with the touchdown to tie the game at 7 late in the second quarter. Cyrus Jive against pressure. That's a difficult pass to execute, Mike DeFinimore.
Yeah, they really questioned whether Finimore's feet went on that one, but great toe tap to score at the back of the end zone.
Price then finds McGee on a little 3-yard route. Look at him break 3 different tackles. McGee, similar to DJ Moses II, willing Fort Worth to remain in this game. Tie game at 14 early in the third. Now late in the third, 1st and goal. Price pump fake and takes it himself. Gets hit from behind but gets dragged into the end zone to put the Toros up 7. Here they are up 4. It's 2nd and long, and that pass is intercepted, and that was Zion Waddles, his first career interception. Mike, what a time to do it for Fort Worth. And it turns out that the 2 teams at the bottom of the South and a team that was out of playoff contention all pulled upsets on the final week of the season, which meant that Mexico City backed in for a Western Conference win for the first time in league history. All teams in one division made the playoffs, and all of them finished with a winning record, as the division ends up getting won by the 8-4 Aztecs, not the 8-4 Adams, not the 8-4 Headhunters, not the 7-5 Bossier City Steamers, or the 7-5 Fort Worth Toros. Madness.
Well, it goes to show you how really difficult that this division is and has been historically, but probably none more difficult than this season. 24 Cam. All teams are capable. We just kind of saw a glimpse of all 5 of them here in this highlight reel. It's just a tough division to play in, tough division to prepare for week in and week out. We have excellent offenses. We have, excellent defensive teams, as we see in Fort Worth, who can, kind of run a balanced attack at you. And I don't know if you want to say who won or lost back then or whatever, but a major accomplishment winning this division one way or the other.
From a Houston perspective, how did you feel like how did you feel after that particular loss? It had been a long time since Houston had lost a game, and you still played very, very well. That kickoff return touchdown ended up being the difference.
Yeah, it definitely was. Probably hurts more knowing that that 9th win would have gotten us a bye, and then what's going to be a difficult playoff run for whomever, makes it to the championship game and ultimately wins. But disappointed from that standpoint, but we played well, and just came up a little bit short as we saw all the teams in this division that that lost, that had opportunity to win. We were all right there, goal line situation for a chance to win and possibly win the division, but just came up a little short. But can't be disappointed with the effort. Just a player too short, but we're in the playoffs, and that's all you could hope for.
I think Bossier City, to your point about Denver being the favorite tonight, I think Bossier City's been playing some of their best football in the last couple of weeks. They just feel, I don't know about you, Mike, because we've been watching them all season long, but they just feel more explosive in the last month in the passing game. I really don't feel like they were showing as many of those looks, in the middle of the season or early in the season. Is that just me, or they just seem like they got it a little bit more together offensively?
Yeah, no, it's not just you, Cam. As a player that I'm going to talk about in the spectaculars, the yearly spectaculars here in a little bit, that has been a difference into why that offenses look so great, and they haven't turned the ball over as much over the past few weeks. And the combination of Johnny Pickle and Vin Callia, they've been money over the last few weeks of the season. Vin Callia's come on strong. Yeah, the running game, they haven't been as good in the running game, but hey, Johnny Pickler is a gunslinger from day one in this league, and he's continued that. And the turnovers have been kept down, and that's been a difference in why Bossier City has looked so great on the offensive side.
The wild card game, or the wild card round, features just one game without a South Division team. That is Minnesota against Carolina. And it is possible that if all of the South teams win outside of either Fort Worth or Houston losing because they play each other, it is possible that 4 South teams could be in the final 8 of the quarterfinal round if they are all able to take care of business today. But Mike and I are not as big in the preview game as Gerald Smith and Mike Daggs are. They're going to preview a couple of games involving South teams coming up. Fort Worth and Houston plays tomorrow to kick things off, and Bossier City and Denver, it kicks off tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on VFN. After Albuquerque takes on Sin City, we send it over to Mike Daggs and Gerald Smith for their analysis of a couple of games involving South divisions as the South finally was decided over last weekend. Mexico City are South Division champions. So we'll send it over to them and get them on screen as soon as possible. Be right back.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to, I guess, what we're calling the Saturday Wilson Spectacular Playoff Week Pre-Show. It's a hybrid thing.
Well, yeah, it is a hybrid thing, but I feel like we made it. We had an opening act.
We did.
The headliners are now here, so we're all good.
It's time for the real show to begin, right?
Our opening act was great, though.
They were good. Yeah, they were good. They got some potential. They got a future ahead of them. But listen, we know what the fans were actually here for. They were waiting for us. It's been, just people have been talking about it all week long. That Mike and Gerald were going to kick the wild card off, and then all of a sudden you get Mike St. Green and Cam. But hey, it's like you said, we had an opening act. I'm Mike Daggs. He's Gerald Smith. Welcome to the wild card round of the playoffs here in season 24. Thanks for joining us for this hybrid edition, as I was calling it. Gerald's calling it the Battle of the Shows. But anyway, this week in the SFL and the Matt Wilson kickoff show is here. So yeah, we're gonna talk about a couple of matchups, but we're also going to talk about the same sort of thing that Cam and Mike were just talking about, how the South ended up. And man, they're just going on and on and on to ultimately say that the Mexico City Aztecs are back-to-back defending champions of the South.
I wouldn't agree. It was a crazy weekend of ball for the South because
Yeah.
everyone was trying to give it to somebody else.
Yeah, nobody wanted
it. Could not. The only people who were like, "Hey, I want this," was Fort Worth and Bossier City,
and they
couldn't get in it. So it's like, oh, Houston had a shot. You guys had a shot. And come down to Albuquerque because I don't want it either.
Nah, it sounds like a lot of stress.
I don't get it. So they're like, let's just give it to the champs, I guess.
All kidding aside, listen, the Aztecs are the South Division champions again, but I don't feel like we won. I don't feel like it was just, all right, who's left? Who ultimately is going to get assigned the title of South Division champion because they just lost the least, I guess. 3 teams at the top, all at 8-4. It's just ridiculous. And you look at the tiebreakers. Houston came in number 2, but Houston beat the Aztecs earlier on in the season. But Mexico City beat Albuquerque, who ended up number 3. So you can't use the head-to-head. So it came down to, I don't know, 8,000 other different tiebreakers. Ultimately, they said the Aztecs won. I'm like, okay,
I'll take it. You'll take it.
Yeah. sold. The best record in the division, 8-4. The worst record, 7-5. All 5 teams make it into the playoffs. It's
I
crazy.
wonder, is this got to be one of the first times this happened, because you have divisions in the league right now that got one team in.
Right.
The South and you guys, that's why I'm not in there anymore. I got tired of getting beaten up. You kicked me out of the league and everything else because
You
I
ran
just
away.
kept getting beat up. And guess what? 7-5, 8-4. It was such a log jam, and it's great football in the South.
Yeah. We always talk about how 7-5 might not be even good enough to get into the playoffs. 7-5 was good enough for last place in the South Division. It's
insane.
like, good Lord. So listen, 2 of the teams in the South were in our pretenders and contenders segment. You had declared Bossier City as pretenders. I declared Fort Worth as contenders. And now both of those teams will play a wild card game this weekend. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, and it is. And Bossier City rose to the challenge.
They
When
did.
I challenged them and told them that they wouldn't go get a winning record, and look what they are, 7-5 in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's like they took that little paddle wheel off the back of their steamer boat and put on an actual diesel, some sort of diesel engine with screws and stuff.
Let it go. Get the EMD out there. Let's roll.
All right, let's start breaking down some of these matchups. We've got Fort Worth at Houston coming up this weekend. Number 2 in the South hosts number 5 in the South. These teams met back in week 6. The game was also played in Houston, and the Toros stomped the Headhunters. They gave them just a beatdown, 41-15. The 26-point margin would prove to be Houston's worst loss of the season. Since that time, Houston went on a 5-game winning streak, and it looked like they might not lose again. They won every game by 2 touchdowns or more until week 15 when they visited fellow rival Bossier City, who managed to beat them 31-24. So now both teams are playing for their season tomorrow night. One will advance to the quarterfinals. The other one's going to head back home to start preparing for season 25.
See, so and Fort Worth, to me, all season long they had played to the level of their opponents. I talked about that week in and week out. The better the team, the better they played. The worse the team, the worse they played. Look, and they have had a tough schedule. 8 games this season were against teams that are now in the playoffs. And as you mentioned before, they beat Houston 41-15.
Yeah.
And what they did, they forced 3 picks in that game. 2 of those were pick sixes. And look, and people might think it was a blowout, but in the fourth quarter, to start the fourth quarter, it was 17-9. Right, Fort Worth is only up by 8 points in the fourth quarter, right, to start that stuff, right, and then Fort Worth pulled away. Offensively, they have to stay mistake-free and get a balanced attack, against the SFL's number 3 defense in Houston. Defensively, Fort Worth will have to force turnovers and slow down, again, Houston's number 1 rush offense. Now, Fort Worth is on the road. Fort Worth is actually 2-4 on the road. Guess what? One of those road wins was against Houston in week 6.
Right.
Now, they also have an SFL best on defense with 6 touchdowns, 6 pick sixes. But you know what they cannot rely on? They cannot solely rely on their defense to score them touchdowns. The offense has to contribute for them to be successful. And in my opinion, for this team on both sides of the ball, players that they need to watch, right? The players that we need to watch to see if they're going to be successful is wide receiver Steven Hacker.
He's the number 1 guy.
Right, and quarterback Eric Price, who is number 3 in completion percentage and has a number 6 QBR. Also on the defensive side, Adam Leach having a very, very good season. 6 interceptions with 2 pick sixes. And Ben Stone, a lot of people don't talk about him, but he's always in the right spot when they need him to be the right spot. Ben Stone, he has the mind of a quarterback, a former quarterback in the minor leagues. He played for the Birmingham Fuel or whatever it was back then, the tire with the flames off of it. So he actually knows how quarterbacks think. So he's really, really good in the secondary, recognize and know what the quarterback's looking at. So those are the players they're going to need to contribute to try and beat Houston.
Demond Simeon in the chat says that wasn't a beatdown. Houston threw 2 pick sixes, and Fort Worth scored the onside kick return for a touchdown. It was, as you mentioned, it was close. It was 17-9, I think he said, to start the fourth quarter. And then it turned into a beatdown. I was saying, you say potato, I say potato. It was their worst loss of the season.
It got away from them.
The circumstances of how it came to be is one thing, but ultimately that was their worst loss. Listen, it's a rematch of that game. So if it wasn't a beatdown, great. Put on a show and let's see what they can do. So what does Houston have to do to try to counteract Fort Worth
Houston,
this time?
as you mentioned before, after that loss, they went 5-1 in the last 6 games of the season. All good. All 4 losses by Houston were against teams that are now in the playoffs.
Right.
They have the number 5 scoring offense, the number 1 rush offense, the number 2 total offense, and they also boast the SFL's number 3 total defense. They also have in their backfield season 24 rushing champ Josh Slapp averages 5 yards a carry,
Right.
over 1,100 yards on the ground, and he will be very, very key for them to win the game tomorrow, in my opinion.
He's going to need a big day.
Look, and the Lake man, right? He also is, he can contribute as well, right? Thrown to all the people he can throw to. He's top 9 in passing yards, QBR, and has the 4th fewest interceptions in the SFL. Wide receivers Mike St. Green and Greg Corky are his top targets combined. They have over 100 receptions and over 1,600 yards combined between the two. And on the defensive side, they are, in my opinion, sneaky good defense. 5th best in sacks. We already know I'm not gonna point out my boy. We all know where he plays. But look, and they're
I'm not going to point him out, but you know where he plays. Okay.
So
that's
he's
pointing him
5th
out,
best
but-
in sacks. Look, and they also have, they're number 7 in TFLs, number 2 in pass defense. So they're clogging up those passing lanes and everything else, right? So they played the line of scrimmage very well, clogging up those passing lanes on 3rd down to shut them down. Also, the players to watch here, also Josh Slapp.
Oh, yeah.
And linebacker Jason Peace, 8 interceptions.
Is he going to get another pick?
Number 2
Will we see
in the
playoff
SFL,
picks?
best amongst linebackers. He just won right below a cornerback who's used to picking the ball off and everything else. So those players are going to have to contribute and everything else, and that's a task that's also for both teams, right? These players to watch, they're going to have to try and slow them down and stop them and try to figure out a way to kind of pull that together and see it again. So we might have a repeat of earlier in the season. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting either way. I mean, 2 South teams, they all made the playoffs, the whole South, but the whole South's not going to be advancing on to the quarterfinals.
No,
one of
definitely
those
not.
2 will be going home. That one is tomorrow night. We've got a good one, another South Division team against a Central Division team coming up later on tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Bossier City at Denver. Gerald, you declared Bossier City a pretender, and I declared Denver a contender. Here we go in the wild card round with a chance to find out who was right and who was wrong.
Oh, I definitely was wrong.
Both teams finished 7-5 on the season. They had very similar win-loss patterns throughout the season. If you look at the games they won and then they lost, then they won a couple, then they lost a couple. The difference is 7-5 was good enough for 4th place in the South, whereas 7-5 was good enough to win the Central Division. But both teams still very similar overall, even though Denver is at home in this one because they ultimately won the Central Division with that record. So Denver, they're home tonight. They are 4-0 in their division, but they are 3-5 outside of that division. Visiting Bossier City, they're coming off of that big win against Houston that we talked about last week. The same Houston team that crushed Denver. Can we call that one a beat down Demond? 44-27 just 2 weeks prior. So, these are 2 teams very similar, but, which one can come out on top?
Bossier City, right? They won versus Houston last week to secure that spot. They won the division, but had no way to get it. They took Houston down to take them out. Offensively, they have to protect the ball. Quarterback number 1, Johnny Pickler, has thrown the 3rd most interceptions this season in the league. But they still have the number 3 pass offense with wide receiver Vin Calia being top 8 in all wide receiver categories.
I'm honestly surprised it's only top 8. He seems like he's top 3.
In all of them. So he's even higher than that in some of them. So look, but when Johnny limits the interceptions, the Steamers usually win.
Yep.
Right? When that happens. The run game with running back Rob Noel has not been great, right? And I think that's part of the stuff. They lean on Johnny a little bit too much. The offense scores 16 less points on the road than they do at home. 16. It's over 2 touchdowns. 16.
Yeah.
And guess what? They are on the road. Huge drop-off. Defensively, it's where they are better. They're number 9 in takeaways. The SFL leader in interceptions, Michaela Forker, 9 interceptions on the season.
Will she get some playoff touches?
2 pick sixes, right? 2 pick sixes with those 9 interceptions. But their defense allows 13 more points on the road. Think about this. 29 points they give away to their opponents on the road. At home, they only give up 16 points.
Right.
It's crazy. The defense will have to force turnovers for them to win. They are 21st in total defense, and the key players, the play of Johnny Pickler, how well he's going to match up with Vincalia. They need to get that run game going. And Michaela, can she save it if the offense can't actually put up the points that they want? So that's something we got to look at from the Steamers.
It's a very Jekyll and Hyde type team. At home, they play great. They just beat Houston. On the road, not so much. And like you said, they're on the road, but they're on the road against a team that has the same record. So granted, the division winner, but a team that's got the same record as them. What's Denver got going?
First playoff appearance since season 16.
When they won the
guess
championship.
what they did? They won the
They sure
championship.
did.
So who knows? Denver is a grinded out type team to me, and have the number 4 rush offense, right? They're able to grind it all out. We all know who they have in the backfield: Bailey O'Shaughnessy and Dwayne Salmons there.
Yep.
Together, they combine for over 16 yards on the ground. The number 6 scoring offense as well. But they cannot get caught being one-dimensional on offense. Quarterback Trellis Blanton will have to be prepared in the event that the running game is able to slow down. If he's not, then get themselves into trouble. And this is something that's surprising. Once I started analyzing the defense,
They're good.
they're low key.
They're good.
Best in the SFL,
Yeah.
number 1 pass defense,
Yep.
number 5 rush defense, which accumulates all to the number 1 total defense in the league. And it's a number. I had to double check. I had to start doing crazy math because I'm weird like that. They only allow per game 274 yards per game to the opponents. No one else. Everybody's right up underneath.
Yep.
Like everybody's like 290 something. They allow 20 yards less than anybody else per game. And the key players for this team, for them to be successful, will be those running backs.
Yeah, for sure.
Bailey O'Shaughnessy and Salmons. And also, I think right here, we just mentioned defense. The defensive scheme that has been all season, that's got this defense playing at a high level, is the defensive coordinator, Jimmy Hatz's defensive scheme.
Yep.
That's going to be something to watch tonight, how they're going to prepare for this Bossier City offense and how they're going to be able to stop them. So, and Hatchie's pulled out schemes that worked out really, really well all season. You can tell it proves right here. Number 1 pass defense, number 5 rush defense, and the number 1 total defense. It's like, and he's limited to the minimal amount of yards. He's doing good. I do
Doing
think
great.
this defense is going to have something for that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get the honor of calling that one later tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. I can't wait to get that one started. Ace Fennec in the chat says, "This is my favorite show." Great job, Gerald and Mike. You guys do an awesome job of getting us hyped for the games. You make it even more fun than it already is. Thank you, guys.
Ace knows he's one of my favorites.
Ace, yeah.
He's
From
one of my favorite guys
Louisiana
in the-
North now at the Pittsburgh
Yeah,
River
of
Hogs.
course.
So
Much love, much love.
And of course, Demond confirmed that Houston's win was indeed a beatdown.
Of course it was.
Of course it was. Anyway, hey, if Ace likes this show, I think he might also like our opening act. We're going to kick it back over to those guys. They can get another shot at the big screen. So Cam and Mike, back to you.
Are they for real? Are they serious? Are they serious with this opening act stuff? What is this?
I didn't know we were in a competition today, Cam. I mean, they have their fans calling in, telling them they love them, and
How much do you think they paid Ace Fennec to go into chat?
I think his palm was greased a little bit. I think he has a little cash coming his way.
I mean, man, you and I we're just chill guys, just having a good time, being actual friends, not fake friends. And it just, I don't understand it, man. I don't know what all the animosity is, but we digress because we got more to get to here because, we're still trying to figure out how we even got to this point. And there were a few teams that had an opportunity to make the playoffs or better their position. And they just quite frankly didn't get it done. Let's get back to the highlights from how Week 15 ended up. How about the Lexington Miners? They were taking on the Vancouver Legion at a 5-6 record, but with a win to get to 6-6. They had a great SOV. They had an excellent resume. They probably would have made the playoffs. And it got off to a good start. 14-10 Lexington here just before the end of the first half. That's Gabriel Manning with the touchdown. But, man, Mike, in the second half, Jack Russell and this Vancouver Legion defense shut down Kenny Slider. They did nothing.
And this is a huge reason why Vancouver in the position that they are in. This defense has been excellent all season, kind of quietly going about their business, but they're a reason why Vancouver has a bye and not playing this weekend.
Christian Brown capped it off there with that touchdown there to Ezekiel Bear and made it 30-10, and that was a wrap. Okay, how about the Florida Storm, who, again, like Lexington, had an opportunity to really boost their resume. They had the Baltimore Vultures coming into town. Look at this play by Ron Cochran. A totally busted play, and Ron Cochran able to take it into the end zone for the score. Just before the half, this looked like the momentum builder that Florida needed. They get it basically a free 3 points because of the interception. But this interception would prove much more costly to start the third quarter, Mike, because Baltimore never looked back after that.
Yeah, they never looked back, but I'll tell you one thing I did like about Florida the last couple of games of the season. They did decide to open it up a little bit, and I think we saw a different Florida, but I think it was just a little bit too late, and obviously to make the playoffs.
Warren Murray gets into the end zone for the touchdown, and this ultimately would clinch Baltimore the number 1 seed. Washington gave him a good run, but Ivory Irvin, man, what a catch. Made it 24-10. Florida got a little closer later, but it was a wrap after that. And Eddie Gage says that Cam and Mike is his 4th favorite show. You know, I think that comment, Mike St. Green, means that Arizona should probably get a first-place division schedule next year, even though they didn't win the division. What do you think?
Well,
I think that's fair.
They feel like they have the toughest schedule, no matter if they play in a first-place or last-place schedule. We all know that, but I want him to name who are the other 3 shows that are better than us.
Yeah, I don't know. He's probably throwing himself in there.
A word on the street, and I don't know what it is.
Is that word on the street?
Is that the name of it? I don't know.
You know what? I'm not even touching that because I'm going to get in big trouble if I start slandering other names of shows. You said it's called Word on the Street. That's really funny. But yeah, so let's start with Lexington, okay? The Miners, when they blew out Florida by like 30, about a month and a half ago, it really did feel like maybe Lexington was in the championship contender category. But we didn't realize that was sort of Florida's falling off. And Lexington never really had a signature win after that, and they just were unable to get it going. They lost Phoenix Jones to inactivity, and that really hurt them too.
It did hurt Cam, but even with Phoenix Jones in the mix, it was the same story we kind of told throughout the season and over the past couple of seasons. It's kind of hit or miss with that Lexington franchise going back to Tulsa. You know, one week they look great, next week they'll lose to a team that you don't expect them to probably lose to, and they just can't seem to maintain a certain momentum that you expect them to have. I really thought this team would take a step forward this season and be more consistent, but it just did not happen for them.
Meanwhile, the Florida Storm have a lot of debt that they need to clear. I just checked today. They're still at $62 million. They're $12 million over. They were $27 million over at the end of last season. They've got some issues, and to be honest with you, Mike, I don't really know what all that leadership is doing for them except inflating their cap and getting them to 6-6 and out of the playoffs. I mean, it's one thing if you're gonna drive up debt and go chase championships, but that's not what Florida's doing right now. I think they got a lot of work ahead of them, and they might be going into a minor rebuilding phase. I'm not really sure. How do you see just Florida and how this season ended for them? They had a chance against Baltimore, but they just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of cap to try to figure out, how to shave off or restructure and renegotiate or however they're going to go about doing it. But if any one franchise that I would trust to do that would be a multi-time, SFL champion, and I think they'll get things figured out one way or the other, revamp some things, probably look at some things that as I mentioned, that they were doing offensively, but maybe they may have to make some tough decisions going into next season, but as I mentioned, they'll get things figured out and be the Florida Storm that we're accustomed to seeing pretty much all the time.
Now, on Monday night, Sin City did get the win over Minnesota, and we haven't really touched on that game, but that was the last game of the regular season. It was actually quite alarming how well Sin City played in that game. Minnesota did make a game of it, but the Samurai showed that they're still a force to be reckoned with. They're a playoff staple at this point, just with a different moniker and a different attitude. Honestly, with the team staff that's leading them now. I think Sin City's future is bright. I had a conversation with Talon Steele a couple weeks ago. He seems like he's the right guy with the right head on his shoulders to lead that team. And that was a huge win for them to beat Minnesota because it boosted their playoff odds and chances, but they still have to go to Albuquerque where the Adams have never lost. So.
Yeah, tough going on the road to face Albuquerque today. But as you mentioned, Talon Steele, man, he's been around this league for a long time, dedicated to this league. Great guy. Know him personally, and he's going to definitely keep this team going in the right direction. Kind of, we didn't know which direction they were going to go in once they, moved and the ownership changed hands kind of late in the off season. But they did excellent branding, excellent ownership group. They kind of struggled. We didn't know what they were going to be, but they have figured things out here lately, gotten things rolling. As you mentioned, a huge win the final week of the season over Minnesota, and going to be an interesting matchup going on the road to Albuquerque, and I'm looking forward to this one tonight.
Mike Daggs and Gerald Smith have a preview of that game, along with Minnesota, Carolina, the wild card weekend playoff finisher. We'll get it back over to them and I guess hear what they have to say about what we had to say. I guess that's what we're doing today. We'll send it over to Mike and Gerald here in just a sec.
We're back. I don't know why
we didn't get canceled.
No, we didn't. But I think we started a fight. There's people in the chat talking about Eddie Gage in the chat saying that we're like number 3. But how did Mike O'Neill's show ranked higher than ours? He's had one show. I'm just whatever.
I don't know.
One
Eddie,
show.
Eddie knows I love him.
Yeah, you made him mad though.
It's okay. I gotta remind him. You need to come out of retirement, get a pick six, then you can ride off in the sunset like McGreen.
Then you won't be able to say you didn't get one anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, let's break down Minnesota
get one,
and Carolina.
and I can't bring it up no more.
All right, let's get back into the game breakdowns. Let's see if we can get this back on track. Listen, we've got Minnesota at Carolina. That game is also tomorrow night. Looking forward to this one as well. Carolina, they started off their season by getting shut out in Denver, who we're going to see later tonight. They would then go on to win 5 of their next 6 games before losing only to the likes of Albuquerque and Washington. Both of those games were on the road before winning their last 3. So started off a little rough, and then they really kind of turned it around. They're playing like a true powerhouse team. They secured themselves an East Division title and the number 5 seed. Minnesota, they finished 7-5. It is a winning record, but something just feels off. They're a perennial playoff team, 6 seasons in the league now. They've made the playoffs all 6 seasons, but it feels like they kind of snuck their way in this season. It's not the Minnesota that we were expecting as we were making our picks throughout the season this season. But they lost the Central Division to Denver. Granted, they did finish with the same record. Johnny Reno, he had a much more average season after coming off a league MVP season. Colin Hart, though, he's still a force. And this is where Minnesota is really shining, is with Colin Hart. So is this the point in the season now where Minnesota finally shows us that they're still the team that was just an overtime win away from the championship last season?
Look, as you mentioned, Minnesota's been such a mixed bag this season, right? They showed the flashes of greatness in some weeks, and then it would just completely fall off. Look, top 2 offense the past 2 seasons, not including this one. This season, they're right in the middle of the road. Nothing spectacular about them at all. The defense has been as good as we expected, just as they were the seasons prior, but the offense has been their Achilles heel, with them being an elite team as we're used to seeing. Quarterback Johnny Rito has had a down season, but the former MVP, as we know, can be elite. We've seen it this season, all in just a limited type fashion, right? So, look, and we just have not seen him just play at that level on a consistent basis. Colin Hart, really, really good season, and he's been at his best. As number 2 rusher, he has carried this offense at times. And the defense, as we know, like I mentioned before, is elite. They are top 10 in every category, most notably number 3 in points allowed this season. 17 points is what they're allowed.
Yeah.
Good for third best. They are number 1 in sacks in the league. 36 sacks on the season, and it's led by the sack leader, and she's tied for sacks for the lead. And Angela Meerkat at defensive end. She has 10 sacks on the season, along with her fellow defensive end, Mark Mello, who has 9 sacks. Matthew Alvarado is one who actually lives in the backfield too. You know him. He played for you for a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And he's the best in the league. 31 TFLs on the season. 31. That's a ton. And they're number 4 in the SFL as a team with 106 TFLs collectively as a group.
Yeah.
For me, this team, their key players is Colin Hart, Johnny Reno, and that front 7, like I said, led by Meerkat, Mello, and Alvarado. So we're going to see how they're going to be able to put it together. We know Colin Hart's playing well. See if Johnny Reno can step his game up, and that front 7 can still hold really, really strong as they've done for which pretty much carried the team so far.
Absolutely. And Carolina, on the other hand, number 5 seed, they won the East. Best record that they've had, I think, ever. They're definitely in a long time. But then you start looking at the stats, and it kind of gives you just a little bit of a question mark.
A big one.
Yeah.
A big one. Look, their offense is the worst among all playoff teams. Their offense ranks 21st in total offense. It's just not good. But they do play better at home. They're 6
And they're home on Sunday.
0 at home and score 11 more points at home than they do on the road. What they score at home? 25 points per game at home. What they score away? 14 points away. So fortunate for them, they are at home. Former MVP quarterback Marcus Dunhill, a very, very down season.
Yeah.
Bottom half in all stat categories for a quarterback, not very good. Riley Quintero, 5th best rusher, but he leads the SFL in carries. He runs the ball. Yeah, he runs the ball a lot, but it's only for 3.3 yards a carry. Not what you want as it's up. They're just running him a lot. It's getting about 3 yards a carry. I would like someone to be a little bit better in that. The defense has carried this team, in my opinion. The defense is among the SFL's best in takeaways. They rank number 2 in takeaways across the league with 27. Linebackers Danny Stinson, Trevor Prasad are arguably the best linebacker duo in the SFL with a combined 13 interceptions and over 150 tackles collectively between the two of them. The defense has 4 touchdowns as well, so they can take it away and turn it directly into points. Key players we need to watch: Quintero and those linebackers on Carolina.
Yeah, I agree. Jeremy Vega in the chat saying, have fun calling the double overtime Steamers versus Nightwings game tonight, dogs. What owner would wish that upon themselves? Double overtime. I'll do it. I'm here for it.
We had 2 in the morning.
Heck
if I start snoring, don't be mad.
Going quadruple overtime. I'll poke you with a stick. Hey, wake up. Listen, we got another great game coming up next. We're just about 17 minutes away from getting the wild card started. Sin City at Albuquerque. That's the one that kicks it off for us. One of the games to kick off the season back in week 1 is the game to kick off the wild card round playoffs. Way back when, Albuquerque hosted Sin City and showed everyone that Jornada del Muerto Stadium was a place that no one wanted to play, handing Sin City a 44-24 loss. They still have not lost in that stadium, by the way. I know. Sin City would then lose again to Florida in week 2 and to Washington in week 4. They're sitting at a 1-3 record. They're just kind of looking out of sorts. Definitely not the Canton Classics team that they, relocated and rebranded. But then they won 6 of their next 8. They finished 7-5. They earned their playoff spot. Albuquerque, they were stout all season long. They were actually ranked number 1 in the playoff picture a couple weeks, throughout the season here in the end of it. Once again, they won all of their home games, and they only lost twice all season until the end. They've lost the last 2 in a row. So both of these teams is kind of like, well, wait a second. We had Albuquerque start off strong, and now they're losing a couple. And you had Sin City, they started off a little slow. Now they're firing on all cylinders. Both of those games that they lost were on the road. Tonight they're back home where they have not lost yet. But listen, all good things do come to an end. Is tonight the night that happens, or does that winning way keep going?
And as you just mentioned, both the teams are very similar in how they play at home versus how they play on the road. Sin City, right? The Samurai obviously play better at home than what they do on the road. They score 9 less points as an offense on the road than at home. Defensively, they allow 15 more points on the road than what they do at home. It's insane. Like it's like they're just so bipolar. They forget how to play when you go on the road. Look, they still are top 8 in points scored as an offense and points allowed, per game. So they're top 8 in that regard. The number 2 rush offense. They have Robert Johnson and Logan Lee. Right, these 2 guys are probably the long-term right? Like
Yeah.
like most dynamic duo.
Oh, yeah.
1,300 yards combined between the two of them. Quarterback score Patterson. This is the big question mark for me. Still hasn't proved to me that he can carry the load consistently when called upon. But look, as if you look at the statistics, he is 10th in QBR, which says he can be efficient. But I don't know if
as
he
of
can
late,
carry
he's
the
been
load.
playing really well.
So look, and it's also with the the play from his wide receiver,
Yep.
Al Dillon Sr. is his big play pass catcher, 50 receptions, over 800 yards, 8 touchdowns. His favorite target. The defense is still elite though. Top 9 in every defensive category, most notably the number 5 total defense and number 3 in takeaways. And it's all led by the safeties, Kanye Rockefeller, Bo Martin Jr., who have a combined 13 interceptions and over 140 tackles between the two. They rush the passer very well with defensive ends Gary Burney and Mike All and Kevin Brackett, all who have 3.5 sacks on the season.
Yep.
Look, but the thing about them, they cannot get behind early because I do think it spells trouble for them. Their offense, as of right now, I don't think they can play from behind very well. So key players, I think it's going to come down to Scar Patterson. If they get behind, can he come in there and he actually kind of handle the load? We know Robert Johnson and Logan Lee can actually do that thing, but he also need help on the passing game side. And this defense, it's key for them to be forcing turnovers to get that offense back on the field to score some points.
All right, let's talk about Albuquerque. I know much like Sin City in the home versus away sort of thing, they score a lot more points when they're at home than they do when they're away, but they're back home.
Yeah, and they rely heavy on the success of wide receiver Kay Marion.
Yes, they
she
do.
plays out of her mind. She leads the SFL in receptions, 86 receptions, and has 1,424 yards, both league best. She has over 51 more catches than anyone else on the team. 51 more catches than anyone else on the team. That's insane.
Yes.
Marion accounts for 2/3 of the passing offense. Her alone, 2/3 of the passing offense, and just over 1/3 of the entire offense. So it relies on her. So if that opposing defense can somehow shut her down, where are they at now?
They do have a good running game, though.
Yeah, and look, and running back Jason, 8th best rusher in the league, right? But I do think it depends on the success of the passing game.
I would agree.
If it's working well, then they can do it. Defensive end, Chris Porter. Like I said, he's also tied for first in sacks with 10. Safeties, TJ Frosty and Bryant James have a combined 200 tackles. They're all over the field. They have 200 tackles. You know what's it's good for them? The home field advantage, because they cannot lose at home apparently. So, and you know what they are? They're also not 9th best in takeaways. So, key players for them. First off, right off the bat, Kay Marion, right? And Kay Marion teamed with their quarterback there in Jive and see if they can keep that going. And also Jason Williams. Can he actually get that run game going and maybe alleviate some of that load? And depending on Kay Marion, the defense as well from the defensive line, they have to get pressure on the opposing quarterback with Porter, Jefferson, Rivers, and Swole Williams. Look, they need to apply pressure. If they can't do it, then they might struggle.
All right, well, that game's coming up in just a little bit, but first we'll make our picks for the wild card and then send it back to Cam and Mike to get the final touches on before back. I'm 8-52, so it's all going to come down to the playoffs for us too, buddy. I mean, my goodness. 136 games have been selected so far, 10 left to go, including 3 tonight. We won't pick the one that we're calling, but we will start with picking the game that's coming up next. Sin City at Albuquerque. Who do you got?
I think it just becomes to how these teams play home versus away.
Sure.
Albuquerque cannot lose at home. I said they cannot. They haven't lost at home. They overwhelmingly good at home.
They are.
On the road, not so much. They are at home. Sin City is not as good on the road as they are at home, just like Albuquerque. Guess what? Sin City's going to Albuquerque, and I do think Albuquerque comes out on top.
All right, so maybe a hot take. Do you remember what I said when I kicked it over to you when we started breaking down this game? All good things must come to an end.
All right.
And at some point, Albuquerque, listen, that's just facts. At some point, Albuquerque will lose at home. I think that time is coming up in just about an hour and a half. Because I think Sin City, they've just been playing phenomenal in the second half of the season, and Albuquerque has been cooling off here in the second half of the season. Am I right? I don't know, man. I've got 53 picks wrong so far this year and only 83 right. So I'm right most of the time. I don't know about this one, but I'm going to go with Sin City on the road in Albuquerque. I think they hand the Adams their first loss at home. Fort Worth at Houston, South Division battle. Who do you got?
So look, we seen Fort Worth kind of trample over Houston early in the season in week 6. I don't think it happens again. Ever since then, Houston's corrected whatever went wrong there, corrected it, and they went on a 5-1 streak after that loss. Houston has corrected it, and they are playing at home. They are another team that plays really, really well at home. Fort Worth, I don't think is going to have enough oomph to get in there and actually knock off Houston. So, battle in Texas, Houston's going to take it.
What you said and then some. I'm also going to go with Houston. Damon Simeon throwing a little shade my way, saying that wasn't a blowout. It was just kind of things fell apart at the end. I don't think things fall apart at the end again this time. Houston, they play really well at home. Sure, they lost against Bossier City on the road last week, but that means they won 5 out of their last 6, and 5 of those were in a row. I think they get back into the win column this week. They advance on to the quarterfinals. Minnesota at Carolina.
And this is something where I'm making this pick for my own well-being. If I pick against them, I feel like there's going to be a hit put out on me. I'm taking Carolina. Even though they have the worst offense of all playoff teams, I'm taking Carolina. They do play well at home. The only thing that worries me about them in the last 4 weeks, they've had 2 bye weeks. They haven't had much field action, so hopefully they're rested up and healthy. Go in there and take care of business at home against a team in Minnesota that's kind of reeling a little bit.
They are. And I see Skippy in the chat staring at me. I can see it. And I'm scared right now, but I'm picking Minnesota. Don't hate me. I'm sorry, but I'm picking Minnesota, even though they're on the road. I picked them a few times this season. They're part of my 53 games I got wrong, and I'm picking them again. I think that listen, you said it yourself, Carolina's offense, just statistically speaking, when I'm comparing these games, Minnesota's team offensively and defensively is just overall better than what the Skyhawks have been able to do this season. I think Minnesota goes into Raleigh, North Carolina, and they get the win. That's all the time that we got. Listen, next season, we're going to have a new segment. It's going to be called Contenders and Pretenders of the Shows. So we'll be able to talk about which show's the best and which show's not.
That.
Speaking of, Cam and Mike, back to you.
Okay. Did you notice, Mike? They didn't even acknowledge that I called them fake friends, so it must be true. They just glossed right over that. But hey, in all seriousness, huge shout outs to Mike Daggs and Gerald Smith for holding down Friday nights for us. Mike O'Neill had a great call-in show earlier today to get everybody hyped for the playoffs. Ashley Jackson has Alex West and a bunch of minor leaguers on tonight for the award show for season 10 and giving out some superlatives. And these are, the stars and the future of the SFL. So that's going on after games tonight. We gave Ron Haynes, Chris Curtis, Tyler Falk the weekend off. We said, hey, you've been working hard all season long. So we have so many great content creators along with Brett Killian and Eddie Gage over on The Streets Are Talking, usually in midweeks here in the SFL. So we just thank everybody for creating content and conversation around the SFL. It's another thing that makes the SFL special. So we just, let's put the right bow on it.
Yeah, I was going to actually second that, Cam. I mean, all the shows are great. As you mentioned, great content coming from several different sources around the league. I enjoy listening or watching all of them, and hope they all continue to do what they do to make this league great, as you mentioned. And I'm just happy to be a part of it as well.
A segment that is unique to us. That is your spectaculars. You do it each week, but this is a season spectacular, and I can't wait to see what you have to offer here, Mike. So, what and who are the season 24 spectaculars for Mike St. Green?
Well, Cam, the mid-season spectaculars created such an uproar. We had to start giving out participation ribbons and orange slices. But, hey, who knows what's going to happen after the season ending spectacular.
Looting.
So we'll see what's going to happen here, Cam. So let's get it started. Who wore it best all season long. I have to give an honorable mention. I'm going to give a couple of honorable mentions before I give the spectacular or the who wore it best of the season. But who wore it best, honorable mention is Bossier City. I really like how they put that blue and light blue combination together all season long. They tend to look good whenever they play. But the team that really impressed me the most, and they actually won the Who Wore It Best award a couple of times, with Washington Triton. I mean, there's something about those bold burgundy and silver colors, or gray. I'm not sure which way they refer to it. And then when you add the home stadium to boot, those guys have looked spectacular all season long. So they get that Who Wore It Best award from me. And then now let's start with probably the most difficult choice, that just looking at the numbers, Cam, who was the spectacular defensive player of the season? And this was really tough. Going to look at Angela Meerkat, tied for the league lead in sacks with Minnesota. She played great all season long. And a person that's going to be huge in the game outcome tonight, Michaela Forker, 9 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Excellent all season long, but I have to give it to spectacular player of the season as Jason Peace, 8 interceptions from the middle linebacker spot. To me, that's just special coming from him, and he's a spectacular defensive player of season 24. Now let's get on the offensive side. A couple of spectacular performances all season long. We're going to start out with Josh Slapp, leading the league in rushing, 1,160 yards, 8 touchdowns. And as I mentioned, I was going to mention this guy a little later in the broadcast, who's going to be playing tonight as well. And if he can keep this back total number of 25 interceptions on the season down tonight, Bossier City and Johnny Pickler with his 3,028 yards passing on the season, they're going to probably come out victorious tonight. But the offensive spectacular player of the year, and I've got a hard time about this guy all season long, Cam, but he came out on top in the end. Christian Brown led the league in passing, 3,381 yards, only 13 touchdowns, but it's just his week in and week out performance. He was great, and a huge reason why Vancouver are one of the top teams in the league.
And it's possible he might not even make the All-Star game, considering that touchdown to interception ratio. But he and the philosophy change in Vancouver and the unique offense that they've been running. They run their running backs at fullback, their fullbacks at running back. They open it up and air it out, and unapologetically so. And it's one of the reasons why they're sitting there at that number 3 spot with that first round bye. And Christian Brown's been a big reason for that. So I totally get that. I think I would probably lean Foraker just simply from her growth. She was a bench rider when she got drafted, and to see her, with 9 interceptions and making all those big plays is pretty remarkable. Peace has had a great season too. So a lot of great mentions there for sure.
Yeah, and that was really the toughest choice to make, Cam. As I recognize, she had a fantastic season and a huge reason why the Steamers are where they are. But I just cannot overlook what Jason did from the linebacker spot.
I think the only other one I'd throw in there is this Kay Marion. I mean, she's unbelievable, and it's crazy. We've seen it over and over and over again, particularly with Gabriel Manning, Mike, where it's just like you can't just have one person that is just like catching all the passes. That doesn't work. And somehow in Albuquerque, it's just working. Now, Jack Wall's come on a little bit more recently, but man, Kay Marion she's definitely Albuquerque's MVP. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, she started out the season incredibly hot, but stayed pretty steady and consistent all season long. But as you mentioned, and that's going to be a big plus tonight for Albuquerque, if Jack Wall and Fenimore can get more involved in this offense, that's going to be huge tonight in this playoff game.
We plan to unveil the all-star rosters for season 24 on the Matt Wilson kickoff show for quarterfinal weekend. And then we've got some Hall of Fame ballots to get out for the 2025 class coming up. And so that'll be an interesting conversation as well. But we'll get all that later in the postseason. Mike, it's time for you to make your playoff picks. You heard what Mike and Gerald picked. So what you got for us?
Well, it wouldn't be the playoff if this wouldn't be tough. This is going to be a tough weekend to pick Man, let's just look at it, jump into it. Albuquerque 2.5 point favorites tonight at home. As mentioned, having lost a home game, both teams, organizations rather have somewhat of a championship pedigree. Obviously, Albuquerque's is in the minors, but they have been great since moving up to the majors. I don't see it any different tonight. I think Albuquerque is going to come out on top in a tight one. And then we'll go to Denver, hosting Bossier City. A huge key, as Gerald mentioned, is going to be the running game of Denver. If they can keep that high-powered Bossier City offense off the field, and if they can also turn Johnny Pickle over, make those 25 interceptions come to fruition a little bit tonight, that's going to be huge. But I got to stick with the South on this one. I think it's going to be too much offensive firepower for Denver to overcome on their offensive side. I don't think they're going to be able to score enough to keep up with Bossier City. So we're going to go with Bossier City in this one. And then over the weekend, obviously, I got to lean Houston. I tell you what, though, if you shuffled all the playoff teams out there and said pick one, Fort Worth will be one of the last teams I would have picked as a matchup for Houston. It's just I think over the past few seasons, Fort Worth is a tough matchup for Houston. They're very balanced on offense. They have the running game, including Jet Zero this season, came over and to take over the running lead for them. And then Henry McGee has been a great complement to Stephen Hackman in the offense. Both receivers have over 800 yards receiving. It's going to be big for Houston to try to shut down one side of the ball or the other. I would prefer to be the passing game. Just take one of those guys away and see if we can what happens on the running game. But obviously, I'm going to pick Houston in that one, and then in the nightcap of Carolina and Minnesota. And I think both of these teams make it tough as to who to pick. But I'm going to give a slight edge to Carolina with being the home team and a slight favorite.
And that's it. That's a wrap. Thank you to Gerald Smith and Mike Daggs for helping us kind of invade their space a little bit ahead of the wild card weekend games. We didn't want to do the show without Mike St. Green. He was out of town, so you just got to adjust to keep things keep your highest priorities straight. So thanks to those guys for helping us invade their space a little bit. And thank you, Mike St. Green, for another great season of SFL this week. Our whole sort of spectacular extra crew will be back for Championship Saturday when Charles Doherty is here with me in studio for the call of that one. So that's going to be a great studio show, a great day and a celebration of season 24. But for now, we got the wild card round to kick off. Sin City and Albuquerque comes up next. Final words, St. Green?
Just great to be here again, Cam. Thanks a lot for having me for another season. Look forward to championship weekend. Hopefully Houston will be there. We'll see how that turns out. But man, another great season in the books, and looking forward to hopefully season 25.
You got to take care, everybody. And Sin City and Albuquerque coming up next.